Coming up next on City Corner, we talk with the St. Louis Public Schools about their new year and partnership with KIPP St. Louis. Please stay tuned. Welcome to City Corner. My name is Melanie Adams and I'll be your host this afternoon. Today we are talking to the St. Louis Public Schools about their new upcoming year. Joining me is Dr. Kelvin Adams from the St. Louis Public Schools, the superintendent. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
Well, I guess one of the things that's on everyone's mind is accreditation. And so I know that's a long, drawn-out topic, something we could talk about for the entire show, but could you kind of give us a synopsis about where the district is in regards to accreditation?
The district was still provisionally accredited under MSIP 4. There's a new accreditation standard called MSIP 5 this year, which varies a great deal from MSIP 4. And MSIP 4 required 14 indicators, MSIP 5 140 indicators. MSIP 4, schools were not individually accredited. MSIP 5, schools are individually accredited. MSIP 4, grade spans were 3 to 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. MSIP 5, all grade spans are put together for one score as opposed to varied scores. So it's a totally different kind of system. For the district this year, the district is at 34.5% of the points that they need out of a scale of 140. The state will give us an additional 2 more years as we get 3 years of data to determine what will happen for MSIP 5.
So the district 2015 so we're still provisionally accredited up until 2015?
The state has the ability to go back and look at each district every single year, but the commissioner has made a commitment, and the state board has as well, that they will give districts 3 years of collection of data before they make a final decision around changing the status of a district, i.e. from accredited to unaccredited or provisionally to fully accredited.
So with those changes, because it sounds like there are a lot of changes, it's not like they just tweaked 1 or 2 things. What are some things that the district is doing differently to address the changes?
One of the things the district is doing is in those schools that are considered unaccredited schools this year, some 18 schools. I am personally managing those schools as the superintendent and the superintendent, if you will. In addition to that, we are looking to hire some 150 tutors to tutor students individually in those schools. We've also restructured the district such that schools that are considered to be fully accredited have some autonomy. There's some 13 or 14 schools that have some full autonomy, meaning that they don't have a direct supervisor, kind of almost as if giving those schools some charter-like power, such that they have flexibility around staffing, around dollars, and around professional development. Those are just some of the kinds of things we're doing, plus the associate superintendents who normally would have supported 30 schools are now supporting some 20 schools, such that we could be a lot more focused around supporting those schools. So we feel really excited about what might happen moving forward.
Now, what does it mean to manage? So if I was a teacher in one of the 18 schools, you may come and observe me? Is that what you're saying?
I have done that in every single school for 10 of the schools that that I am presently supporting. We are not looking at every single grade initially. We are looking at the grades that are the tested grades. So over the last 2 weeks, we have visited in a focused instructional learning walk process to go into every one of those classrooms, spend some time in the classrooms, and give teachers feedback around their practices. And so moving forward, we're providing professional development to the principals and the teachers in those schools to help them to coach them, if you will, around what they need to do to improve their instruction. We'll start the second set of schools that I'm presently managing tomorrow, as a matter of fact, and we'll be doing the same kind of focused instructional learning walk to support those schools.
Well, and the interesting thing is, and I don't know if this is something you can answer because it really is a statewide issue, but looking at the MAP test, and I've pulled sample tests off the website, and I've used them before in presentations to give to people, and some of the questions are hard. I mean, it's not a kind of, we were saying it's not our Iowa basic skills that we were used to. So I guess how can the community and caregivers prepare kids for questions that we're even having trouble answering?
I think it's really about dialogue. I think some of the questions are higher order thinking questions, and we focus so much on what we call DOK level 1, questions that are just recall questions. These are questions around analyzing, synthesizing, explaining their answers. And so what kids do a great deal of is say yes, no, maybe. And these questions are questions that you have to really expand on, take and defend a position, why you're making that kind of decision around saying yes or no. What's the background information or the backup information to help you defend that question? So I think what the public can actually do is really have dialogue with our kids. Kids spend a lot of time on telephones or texting, and their answers are yes, no, and some of them use abbreviated language. So it's really about engaging kids in some real dialogue. If nothing else, if you can't tutor a kid or provide homework assistance to a kid, if you talk to kids, I think you have to challenge them around giving you full answers, answering in complete sentences, and also explaining why you are making those kind of decisions, which our kids have a really hard time doing at this point in time.
Well, it seems like something else that would be helpful. The nice thing when you have the practice test is they actually give you the answer key. And so you see how they're going to score the answer, and it says exactly what you just said. So if they asked you to compare and contrast, if you didn't compare and contrast, you're going to lose points on that. So really understanding what type of answers they're looking for.
And persons can go to the website, the state's website, to obviously look at some of the examples of those questions. But just an understanding of how the questions are being framed, I think it's critical for the community to understand that they have to challenge kids in a greater way. Kids are so used to multiple choice responses, A, B, C, or D. You still may have to pick A, B, C, or D, but you have to explain why you're picking A, B, C, D. So I think those are some of the kind of things that the community can do. And this is more than just about testing. This is really about rigor and relevance, helping kids understand that the focus of the work is to expand their learning, not just for them to do well on a test.
Well, you mentioned tutors. So you mentioned the district is hiring 150 tutors. I mean, what will those tutors be doing? How is that different? Because I think every district talks about having tutors, but what makes this program special or different?
From our perspective, we realize that our kids have a really difficult time remaining after school and extending the day. They also have a very hard time coming to school early in the morning prior to the school day starting to get assistance. So what we actually are doing are hiring tutors to spend the day with kids. So we have tutors that will be working with kids during their communication arts and mathematics class and pulling those students out every single day in a consistent way such that they're reinforcing what students learn in communication arts and math. And those tutors will have no more than 2 to 3 students per period. So a tutor will support some 25 students in a real direct way every single day. And those will be the students that we have identified that need assistance based on their pre-assessments that we provide to students and based on the most recent MAP assessments. So this is a real direct kind of focus during the school day, not before, not after the school day, with persons who have degrees, persons who are certified, not necessarily certified teachers, but who have degrees in English or in mathematics. So they know the subject matter and they're focused on intentionally helping students.
And those are the schools that are in your zone?
Those are the lowest achieving schools, the 18 schools that are really considered the low achieving schools. And those schools have been identified by the federal government and the state because they provided school improvement dollars for those schools to improve. And so this is all a method by the federal government, the state, and locally the district to support those schools in a real strategic way.
And I think also, again, I think we always talk about what needs to improve in St. Louis public schools, but what are some really good things that are going on in the district right now?
One of the things that I think is an exciting piece is that we've opened a new school this year. The school is a school focused on science and mathematics, a medical high school, if you will. Some 60 students started most recently, and we're really excited about the opportunity for that school to grow into a high school with some 300 students over the next 2 or 3 years. Really, really excited about that opportunity. In addition to that, we are working to make sure that all of our schools get the kind of technology support they need. So all of our 3rd and 4th and 5th grade students this year will have access to technology by having an iPad. So the iPad instructional piece is intently in place in all of our schools. And a third component, which I think is not something that parents and students can see is we still continue to work with principals to train principals such that they are better at their craft. We know that the key to this whole work, at least from my perspective, the key is strong leadership. And so we are continuing to work with our brand new principals, some 17 this year, to try to assist them to be better instructional leaders. And so those are some of the kinds of things, some that the public can see, some that the public can't see, in a real strategic way to make sure that schools are getting the kind of support they need.
Right, and I think part of the issue, what happened was I think everyone felt the district was on such a trajectory. We were moving forward, things were going great, and then the state just kind of turned on us with MSIP 5, and we went from provisionally accredited to, like you said, 34.5 out of a possible 140. And we obviously were not the only district. If you look, there were a variety of different districts. So I guess, is there any, like, what's going to happen after 2 years when people aren't meeting that 70? They're going to have a lot more transfer issues on their hands.
Well, I think the state obviously has some ideas, and so the commissioner has brought in an outside group to study Kansas City with the hope that some of the knowledge they gained from Kansas City can be used to support other districts that are struggling, like Riverview and Normandy and St. Louis Public. I'm extremely confident that the results that we saw this year will not be the same results that we have next year. We are working strategically to make sure that that occurs, understanding what MSIP 5 is about. Part of this work is understanding the dynamics of the assessment system. And so the assessment system is a new assessment system for us. We will focus on MSIP 4 such that we could gain accreditation provisionally or fully. And so now we are understanding what the dynamics are. As a matter of fact, we were on the phone just before I came here with the state to help us understand clearly what the requirements are for MSIP 5, because many districts are still trying to understand as they were making changes as early as 3 months ago. So this is a learning piece for the district staff, and it's also an alignment piece, making sure that we align our resources and our instructional delivery with what the state is actually looking for. We're not focused strictly on the test.
Right, of course.
But we are aware that it is a component that we have to be mindful of.
Unfortunately, we're judged by the test, even though we know that education is a lot more than the test.
That is correct.
But that is what the state is holding us to.
Yes.
Well, coming up on the next half of City Corner, we're going to be bringing in the Executive Director of KIPP St. Louis. He'll be joining us, and we'll be talking about the new partnership with St. Louis Public Schools. Please stay tuned.
For This Week in Bad Stats.
Bad stats?
Horrible stats. Here goes. 132.
That's how many batters struck out 4 times in one game last season.
Wow, very good. Here's a tough one, though. 3 and 4.
No idea.
That's how many kids witness bullying. 3 out of 4.
That's not a good stat.
No, it's not, but it can change. Kids want to help, but they don't know how. Visit stopbullying.gov and give them the tools they need to help prevent bullying.
There are plenty of safe ways kids can help at stopbullying.gov.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
Welcome home, man.
Lead paint poisoning affects 1 million children today. If you're pregnant or have young children and your home was built before 1978, you could be at risk. Learn how to protect your family. To find your home's danger zones, the health effects, or just to find help, log on to leadfreekids.org.
Welcome back to City Corner. Today we're talking about the St. Louis Public Schools and their new partnership with KIPP St. Louis. Joining us now is Kelly Garrett, Executive Director of KIPP St. Louis. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first, tell us a little bit, what is KIPP and KIPP St. Louis specifically?
Great. So KIPP stands for the Knowledge is Power program. And KIPP is part of a national network of high-performing charter schools serving students primarily in low-income neighborhoods and providing a high-quality extended day, extended week, extended year educational program to help low-income kids climb the mountain, we like to say, to and through college.
Wonderful. So tell me a little bit about, so how did KIPP St. Louis get started? How long has it been in St. Louis? How many schools do you have?
Great. So KIPP was founded in 2009 in St. Louis, and there was a consortium of community leaders, business folks who were, and Washington University, who were excited to see high-performing national networks that were not-for-profit and getting good results come to St. Louis and establish some on-the-ground experience in schools. So KIPP Inspire Academy opened serving 5th grade students in 2009. We now serve about 340 students in grades 5 through 8. And KIPP Inspire is our first middle school in the city, and we hope and are now excited in the partnership with St. Louis Public Schools to serve more kids through partnering and through figuring out ways to create new schools.
So are all KIPP middle schools 5th through 8th? I guess I'm usually used to a 6th through 8th model, so all of them are 5th through 8th?
Right. KIPPs historically have started in 5th grade, and so the original KIPP schools began with 5th graders, keeping them through 8th grade. But now KIPP has realized nationally and locally we're really excited about growing down, serving students at younger ages. But the idea is that once a KIPPster, always a KIPPster. So our students who complete 8th grade, even though they're no longer in school, they're alumni of KIPP, and so we manage to stay with them and track our students and support them through high school and college and beyond.
Right. And one thing which we always throw around a lot of terms, so we want to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about. But again, tell us what a charter school is.
Great. So charter school, for about 25 years now across the country, we've had charter schools growing up and operating in both urban and rural areas. In their simplest form, charter schools are free open enrollment public schools, but they're charter in that they've been given sort of special sanction by the state in some cases or by districts in other cases to basically exchange freedom to operate in exchange for accountability. So a charter school usually has about a 5-year term in which to operate, and at the end of 5 years, if they have performed and met the sort of commitments that they've committed to in their charter, they can continue to operate. On the other hand, if a charter school isn't performing, they could be closed down. So, but they're given freedoms in which to innovate. So the idea was charters should become incubators of innovation, really, and with increased accountability to operate. Okay,
well, we're here to talk about this wonderful new partnership. So Dr. Adams, can you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
We started a conversation, Mr. Garrett and I, really 3 to 4 years ago, talking about what a partnership might look like. Over the period of the last 3 years, we've kind of continued to talk about that. The opportunity became available to us when another charter school provider who was interested in a building, Mitchell School as a matter of fact, decided not to partner with us around that idea. And so Mr. Garrett and I started talking about the possibilities of what it would look like. And it was not necessarily about a building, it was about really how could we share resources to increase the quality of education for kids in the city of St. Louis, regardless if they were private or parochial students, or whether those students are in a charter or a public school, a district public school. And so we started talking about that whole notion and idea. And so we talked about the idea of a building for the at the granular level test scores, if you will. But it's much more than that. It's really about us collaborating to determine how can we get the best ideas on the table to support what happens in the charter school world and what happens in a public district world. And so that's how this really came about. It started with a conversation. The conversation obviously deepened till we started talking about putting some ideas on the table. We went to the state and to talk to them about what this might look like from a financial perspective, meaning that the district remain in the LEA or the district not remain in the LEA, which is local educational agency for the schools, such that the test scores could be housed in the district coffers to support the district around the whole notion of accreditation. KIPP has done well nationally, has already been said, and their test scores mirror that because of the kind of accountability and flexibility they have to tweak and do the kinds of things around innovation. So we thought it would be a great idea. This is happening in other cities across the country. Obviously, it takes a great commitment to make that happen. So the hope is next school year, 2013-14 school year, will be the real first year of the partnership. The local board, the SAB, approved the partnership, and the KIPP board did the same. And so we're really excited, Kelly and I, around what this might look like. There's so much that can be done. Right. The challenge for us is to make sure that we manage this well such that the public feels good about the results that happen.
Right. And I think we should have some images from both KIPP St. Louis and St. Louis Public Schools, so we could kind of get those rolling a little. You'll see some wonderful pictures of children arriving at school on the first day and kind of what happens in the classrooms. But I guess one of the things, Dr. Adams, that you said was that this isn't a new type of partnership. So Kelly, can you talk a little bit about, has KIPP done this in other regions? I know they're pretty much in almost every state. Have they done this in other states around the country?
So KIPP's in about 20 states and the District of Columbia, so not quite every state.
It seems like more.
But there are 140 KIPP schools around the country, and the idea is that we are creating a national network where we can really share and learn best practices from one another, and also hopefully be disseminators of the lessons we're learning. I guess I would back up, if you'll allow me, Melanie, for one second, just to say, you know, Dr. Adams' vision for really serving all kids, you know, he has several thousand students in the district right now, but I think his commitment is not just to the students he's serving, but to making sure that all kids in the city have great educational options. So for me, this wouldn't have even been an option for us if there wasn't a visionary leader at St. Louis Public, one who we not only trusted but believed the vision that he really brings to his work and to the city. So really excited about that, and just incredibly have a lot of gratitude toward him and to the work he's doing. So, you know, in terms of places that we've seen doing this, our really initial conversation centered around the Hartford Public School District, which is interesting because there is not a KIPP school in Hartford, but there is another high-performing network called Achievement First. And so what we did was we looked at the model that the Hartford Public School District and Achievement First brokered, and essentially what was really exciting about that partnership was that it went beyond just the idea of a building in exchange for access to data. So it really went to how can we think about shared services, how can we serve greater numbers of students with higher quality programs, and how can we learn from one another, because we're both going to learn from this partnership. And so for us, you know, there is sort of this transactional nature in the beginning, but the idea being we're going to serve greater numbers of students with greater programming each year.
Well, I think one of the things that you mentioned that Dr. Adams said, which I've heard him say many times, and I think it's really important, is all of the students are our students because there's such a high transition rate in St. Louis. And so whether that's kids who are going between the different charter schools, parochial schools, public schools, so it is really important to create this community network of educators, so even if the kids do change schools, they're still getting the same quality education. Yes. And so, Dr. Adams, can you talk a little bit more about that and why that's, I mean, when did you figure that out? Was that something that it was very similar in New Orleans, another place you worked, or was it kind of in St. Louis, we have such that high percentage?
I think New Orleans is a little bit different. There's some 41,000 kids I found that really are being educated with public dollars in the city of St. Louis. Some 5,600 that are participating in the VIC program, some 10,000 that were being educated by charter schools, and some 25 to 27,000 students now that are being supported by us. And so what we saw is this high mobility. We saw students going to charters for a year, coming back to us. We saw kids being involved in VIC and coming back to us. And so at different quality levels, quite frankly. And so from my perspective, it's really just a notion of how can we get better quality schools, better quality educational options for students. And so we look at the work that KIPP was doing. KIPP was doing a great job around that, but we are not necessarily only married to KIPP around this piece. This is really about looking at high quality options for all kids. I'm presently the vice chair of the VIC board this year for the St. Louis Public Superintendent for the first time ever, because it's really also about expanding what we do in the city and what VIC does to try to make sure that we are uniform into supporting kids. Kids have choices.
Right.
They should not be punished because they're making a choice. They should be supported in the choices that are available if adults work closely together to fill in the gaps when kids decide to move from a charter school to a public school. The same thing in both public schools, but from a district school to a charter school, or from a VIC program back to the city, or vice versa. We want to make sure that we're filling those choice gaps for them such that they don't fall through the cracks. And that's really what this has been about. I won't be here forever, Mr. Garrett won't be here forever, but we still have kids in the city that need to be supported. So the hope is that we leave, both of us, with this idea that we've created a structure in place that goes beyond us, that can support kids in the city of St. Louis.
Well, then one of the things you mentioned, so just again, what is VIC, just so people kind of...
Voluntary transfer program.
Right, and you said we have 6,000 to 7,000 kids in there?
5,600 as of last year. The intent here is that African American students, because of the desegregation agreement, can leave and go to selected county districts. The state pays dollars for those students, and transportation is covered by the state as well. So there's some 5,600 kids that are leaving every single morning, participating in districts outside of the city of St. Louis, similar to what, unfortunately or fortunately, depending upon who you ask, is happening to Riverview and Normandy without that kind of structure in place.
Right. Well, and time goes so quickly, so I'm going to give Kelly the last word here. Talk a little bit about how will you know this is a success in 5 years? What would you like to see from this partnership?
So, as I mentioned before, I think we're going to learn a great deal from St. Louis Public Schools. I hope that they learn something from us along the way. I mean, I think about like what our vision is for St. Louis, and you know, KIPP's vision, and I think it's similar to St. Louis Public's, is that all children in the city of St. Louis or in our region will have access to a high-performing network of public schools, so that they have free schools that they can attend, that they know they have options, that they have high-performing options. And so, you know, we look at college access as being a key indicator. Right. We look at high school completion rates, but you know, if we think that right now, and this is kind of the national average, low-income children complete college at about a 10% rate nationally. Right. And in St. Louis, we think we're probably close to that national average. You can discount or add to it, but I think we know we're successful if we could, let's say we could double or triple, even quadruple that rate of low-income kids from St. Louis, many of them who are first-generation college kids, and see them complete college, hopefully eventually to return to St. Louis. Right. And really help us transform the city. So I think I'll know we're successful when we see the needle move on college access and college completion, when we see that, you know, it's not us against them, but really us creating a portfolio of great schools for kids.
Well, I think, you know, this is just a wonderful opportunity for the students in St. Louis City to have this type of partnership, and I really like what Dr. Adams said about it being a model moving forward. So we do have information about both the St. Louis Public Schools and KIPP, which we will show. So if you would like more information about this partnership, please look over the next year or so. There'll be information, I'm sure, on both websites. And I would like to thank both of our guests for joining us today on City Corner. This has been a really informative discussion, and please join us again next time.